Hey guys, it's Bastian time. Welcome to This Week in Nintendo News. I'm your host Bastian. Let's get to that first story. So our first story is a little bit unfortunate. Well, not a little bit, actually extremely unfortunate. And I really hope that this doesn't mar the release of the Wii U. I really hope the press doesn't latch onto this and vilifies Nintendo, because as far as I'm aware, this was not Nintendo's fault at all. But Foxconn, who is, I think, I might be wrong, but I think they're owned by Apple. I know that they're definitely involved in manufacturing Apple products like the iPhone and the iPad and so on. But also, they are the ones responsible for manufacturing the Wii U, and they were recently accused of employing underage labor, child labor, and specifically for the production of the Wii U. Now this is completely against Nintendo's policies. They have very strict rules and regulations about this kind of thing. So it is not, I really don't think that Nintendo had any knowledge of this whatsoever, because they would have stopped it had this been the case. And I think they're likely to take legal action against Foxconn, the manufacturing plant, for this being the case, because I mean this can hurt Nintendo. I just really hope that the media doesn't get all crazy about this and tries to make Nintendo seem like the bad guy, because based on my understanding of it, they really aren't. They had no idea. This is just something that they found out along with the rest of the world recently, and it's really unfortunate. But speaking of the Wii U, on to some lighter news. We recently found out a pretty astounding fact about the Wii U's Pro Controller. That's not the GamePad, but the thing that's like a more traditional controller. And what we found out was that one charge will last up to 80 hours. That's crazy. I mean, you could play the whole Zelda Wii U game without ever recharging that controller. So that's pretty awesome. Also, regarding the Wii U Pro Controller, a third party has gone ahead and created some really interesting designs which look like a Super Nintendo controller. Both the Japanese version and the North American version, like the Super Nintendo controller, sort of nestled inside of more Xbox 360 shape. I definitely, if I'm going to get a Pro Controller, I'm not really sure if I am going to or not, because I'm pretty excited about the GamePad, personally. I'm going to try to use the GamePad as much as possible, but if I do get a Pro Controller, I'm definitely going to get one of the Super Nintendo style ones. Something else that we found out about the Wii U is pretty unfortunate, and that is the fact that for whatever reason, Nintendo has not created a universal voice chat system for the Wii U, and instead, voice chat will be limited to specific games, and oddly, to make matters even worse, not only is it just for specific games, but also you have to use a headset. Which, I mean, most people who do the voice chat stuff for video games do use headsets, but I mean, the GamePad itself has a mic on it. It just seems like, why couldn't you just use the mic on a GamePad? I don't get it. And also, the headset must be plugged into the GamePad. So if you're going to be playing the type of game that you usually use a headset for, those are the sorts of games that most people are probably going to want to use one of the Pro Controllers, and you're not going to be able to. Well, you can, but you have to plug the headset into the GamePad. So it's just, I don't know what they were thinking. It just doesn't make sense to me, because it feels like the Pro Controller should have a headphone jack for plugging the headset into. I just don't understand why you have to plug your headset into a controller, the Wii U's GamePad, which already has a mic in it. It just doesn't make sense to me, but I don't see myself really playing too many of those kinds of games that require the use of a headset myself, so it doesn't really affect me, but I know it's going to affect a lot of people out there, and I know a lot of people are going to use this as ammunition for why Nintendo is still a step behind the PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360. At least that's what they'll be saying. It's not really true exactly, but I can just imagine what they're going to be saying. And that's unfortunate, because I really want Nintendo to have made all of the advances beyond that generation, so that when the next generation comes along and there are already newer advances, that they're still competing. But anyway, so there's good news for Pokemon fans out there. There is going to be a Pokemon-specific 3DS, well, specifically Pikachu. So if you don't already have a 3DS, or you're just a massive Pikachu fan, you'll be able to get your hands on a Pikachu 3DS. Our next story is just a rumor, but it's sort of very likely, because there already were rumors, and this is coming from a different source that's supposedly credible, so it seems like this is going to be pretty likely, and it is that the Wii U and the Virtual Console will allow you to purchase GameCube games. Now this is essential because the Wii U is not compatible with GameCube games, discs. You can't use the GameCube discs in the Wii U. It is backwards compatible with Wii discs, but not GameCube discs. So, if Nintendo fans were not going to be able to play GameCube games on the Wii U, I think there would be some frustration out there. So it sounds like, not to worry, there will be purchasable GameCube games on the Virtual Console. And speaking of backwards compatibility, after all of these years, we just found out that the Super Nintendo was originally going to be backwards compatible with the Nintendo Entertainment System games, but that they decided to nix that idea because in order to install that extra slot to place an NES cartridge in, the extra price of manufacturing that would have been an additional $75 on top of what the Super Nintendo was already costing, which I think was $200. So, and that was back at that time kind of a lot. Like the NES, I remember, was $99, and then when the Super Nintendo came out, it was $100 more. So if it was $275, I think that would have been an issue. And then our final story is another rumor, and you surely have already heard this because it was kind of a big deal this week. But according to the source, Mr. Miyamoto is supposedly going to be stepping down from his position at EAD. That's the software development division within Nintendo. By 2013, so that he can move into a smaller, separate software development division. I mean, the thing about this rumor is that a very similar rumor came about 6 months ago, and in fact it was published on a reputable gaming website, and then Mr. Miyamoto had to come forward and say, no, that's not what I said in that interview. What I really meant was blah, 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 because the interview had quoted him as saying that he was thinking about retiring. I don't know, I kind of think that, I'm kind of two minds about this. I kind of either think that that original rumor was probably fact, but because it caused a whole bunch of uncertainty about Nintendo, because how could Nintendo be without Mr. Miyamoto at the head of all of the major franchises, there was a lot of like, oh no, Nintendo's going to go downhill, and so they all decided to have him come forward and say, no, that's not what I said. But if it turns out that he really does step down by 2013, kind of makes me think that that really was the plan all along for about this past year. But then the other side of me thinks, this is probably just another silly attempt at a rumor, and I can't imagine him stepping completely away from Mario and Zelda. I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like for as long as he's alive, he'll want to have the final say on those, and if he really does step away from EAD, he's not going to be able to. Those franchises are going to be left completely in the hands of their respective producers, and it just seems so weird to me that Mr. Miyamoto will have completely divorced himself from those games. So, I don't know, we'll just have to wait and see how it actually pans out. But I'm sure that those franchises, even if he really does step down and it has no influence in those franchises any longer, I'm sure they'll be fine. Eiji Aonuma has proven himself to be a very good Zelda producer, and I forget who the current Mario producers are. There's a separate one for the new Super Mario Bros. Series, and then one for the Mario Galaxy series. So they're doing fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. So that's it for this week in Nintendo news. I'll see you next week. Bye!